I think an important thing to remember when approaching any calisthenic exercise is understanding fundamental concepts about leverage, and I think the best way to demonstrate that is during a human flag. When we're doing a flag, you can see quite obviously that there are peak points in leverage. There's particular portions in the movement where we're going to experience resistance more so than others. So when I'm in my full flag, when my body is parallel with the floor, that's when I'm experiencing the most resistance, and that's when the force on my upper arm, my bottom, my midsection, my core is going to be really substantial. So what I want to do, if I'm approaching this from a fundamental level, is not necessarily go right up to here. Okay, it wouldn't make sense to go into a gym and throw all the plates onto a bar and expect to pick it up. So when people go and they try and kick up into a full flag from the get-go, there's a fault right there. We can experiment with so many other degrees in here. Okay, resistance is going to be experienced exponentially more as we get to that midline, and then once we break that midline, resistance is diminished once again. Okay, the resistance that we experience. Okay, we get greater leverage over our lower body. So generally speaking, if I want to approach this from a concentric standpoint, I can kick up into a flag. Okay, and then I have concentric action where my muscles are going from a state of the relaxed into full flexion. Okay, opposingly to that, I can go from a eccentric standpoint where if my legs are above me and I'm supporting myself from a flag, I'm going to a point of flexion. Okay, and the flexion is increasing and then it diminishes. Okay, so we can approach that eccentrically, concentrically. We can experiment with static holds depending on what's available to us. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of different modifications for this particular movement, some drills I like to do with my clients. I know it'll be able to help you guys out as well. Okay, first thing with the flag is making sure that we find a hand positioning that suits us. Okay, this one is just about perfect for me. Okay, both of my arms are able to be fully extended. Okay, I'm going to start here and I'm going to work on just kicking up, and I want to just get a little bit of lift, so I'm not experiencing force for any extended period of time. I'm just creating a little lift and I'm coming down, just like what we can do with handstands, where we're just kind of being a little playful with it. We're kicking up, we're not trying to stay in any fixed position, and we come right back down very, very gracefully. Okay, now I want to mimic the motion that I'm going to be creating with my full flag as much as I can from a fundamental standpoint. So if I can have my chest facing the handles and then opening up, that's very similar to what I would be doing during a conventional human flag. So this gives me a chance to reinforce functional patterns, okay? Things that are going to really come into play when we get further down the line to more difficult progressions, and simultaneously just give us an idea of what this form feels like. I approach this just like a handstand in that I have... You good? I approach this just like a handstand in that this leg is going to swing back, okay, and kick up, and then I have another leg that's going to be pushing off of the ground. Okay, so we have one leg creating momentum and we have one leg creating force, creating a little bit of a hop. So if I swing back, open my hip up, and what I'm really trying to do is stack my shoulders and my hips. So creating stacking here and creating stacking at the hip. So I'm just going to kick, and I'm pulling from my arm with a straight arm. And I really mean being playful for this. Okay? I'm not trying to stay in any fixed position. Notice I had my legs straddled. I didn't even try and bring them together. We're not trying to maximize resistance right now. We just want to understand the form. Okay? Going back to earlier with the example with the deadlifts. The deadlift, I can always strip that bar down. I can have somebody do it with a broomstick, and they can still understand the concept of that form with no resistance. Okay? This is very different in that we still have to use our entire body regardless of the modification that I'm doing for a flag. So by doing this and kicking up, we're just creating lift. Okay? We're just creating a little bit of lift, and we're able to get a feel for what it's like to catch some air. I certainly don't want to increase resistance on this particular drill because that doesn't serve us any purpose. For this, once I start getting a little more comfortable with it, I'm going to try and kick up harder, but I'm still going to keep straddled for now. And I'm going to try and catch a little more air, maybe hold it for just a split second. The reason why I keep talking about keeping your elbows extended is this bottom arm is my support. Okay? For all intents and purposes, this arm needs to be extended at all times while doing a flag. Okay? So what I like to tell people to do is kind of roll their elbow in, fully extended. Okay? And that's our support. Now, an equal amount of force needs to be created with our upper body, and our upper arm is pulling. Now, if I bend my arm, just start talking about those compensations. I'm creating flexion in the bicep, and now the bicep is going to be doing the job of a much larger muscle group, which would normally be my lats, okay, and my entire lateral chain. So my internal, external obliques, okay, hip abductors, okay, and we want to be able to let those muscles be the prime movers. They're much more effective for lateral chain stability. If I'm trying to have my bicep act as a creating more force than some of those muscle groups, it's going to kind of be bound to fail. So if I kick up and try and catch some air, I'm really going to try and straddle as far as I can apart, and I'm going to try and get a little bit of height, a little more height. Okay? Okay? And that's more of a drill. Could be, depending on where you're at, that might be enough, and you might experience a little bit of the strength training component there. Okay? If you don't have somebody to spot you, you could experiment with that for a little bit and just kind of get an idea for what that feels like. Alternative to a spot, what we can try and do is break through that point of maximum resistance. Okay? So what I tell people to do is kick up and try and drive their heels into the ceiling. Now, I've seen people kick up with their legs in front of them. Again, I think that develops poor motor patterns because that's not what you're going to do later down the line, right? So if we can build up strength to bring our legs up this way, I would encourage you to do so. Okay? Now, once we're up here, some of you are going to bend your upper arm to keep yourself there, to stay tight against the bar. I'm going to say that's okay. Keep in mind that it's a lot harder to extend an angle, okay, to create, to change the angle of a given joint once it's experiencing a maximum amount of force. So if you're trying to extend your arm after you break that point, okay, when you get away from the handles, as your body begins to extend out, it's going to become more and more difficult to establish lockout. So it makes much more sense to establish lockout from the beginning and then going and following through. Same thing goes with our handstands, our planches, our levers. Okay, it's just a concept that it wouldn't hurt to kind of wrap your head around now. Okay, so for the flag, if I get up all the way, I could try and keep my arm locked out from the beginning, and I'm going to kick my legs up, and I'm going to almost try and keep them right up and back. Okay. Okay, if you can, you could support yourself like this. Okay, if there's something where you can put your feet on, or just keep them here. Alternatively, I know some people like to get into a little bit of a crow. Okay. Just like when we come down with from our handstands, I would encourage you guys to put one foot down at a time. Okay. Come down lightly. If you come down both legs and you crash down, you're more likely to sprain your ankle, possibly torque your knee in an uncomfortable way. Come down one foot at a time, distributing your weight, okay, as you come down from that. Now, the further you can bring your legs over you, the less resistance you're going to feel, because you end up creating a counterbalance, okay? Just like we said earlier in the interview, as your body extends out, you'll be experiencing more resistance. You'll be experiencing much more resistance, exponentially so. So keep in mind the slightest bit of extension of your body is going to create much more resistance for you as a practitioner. Okay, so you can play around with those tucks. I've seen people just hop up into a tuck from here. Okay. And fight it down like that, and work on your eccentrics and concentrics that way, okay? Before trying to bring yourself out and lowering yourself down and staying in a fixed position, okay? Once we move outside of the tucks, okay, then we can experiment with straddles, coming down with a straddle, and then ultimately coming in with one knee in, one knee out, and then ultimately our goal of both legs out. Okay. Now, something to keep in mind is that body positioning that I was alluding to earlier, where I talked about stacking your shoulders and your hips. Okay. It's very easy, and you see it often, and I'm guilty of doing it sometimes myself because it's just a bit more of a comfortable position. We kind of tilt ourselves up slightly, right? We lose that stack. And what does that end up doing? Okay, besides not being as aesthetically pleasing, it creates more dependency on the abdominal wall. Okay, the rectus abdominis. Now, the problem with that being, one, it's I think calling it, well, they're saying it's a true human flag or not is more of a case of semantics. But I think if our intention is to create transverse development, unilateral development, it would make much more sense to kind of keep those hips square and make sure that we could stay linear without having to torque ourselves up. Okay. It also kind of puts the lower shoulder in a bit of a it definitely puts the lower shoulder in a little bit of a how would you put it? It's off.
Yeah, off. It's almost hyperextending or twisting in ways.
Exactly. It's certainly not creating stability.
Yeah.
So with anything that involves balance or like structural integrity, stacking is going to be our best friend. Yep. Okay. So
for your joints, especially for form, for strength.
Sure, absolutely. So and that's leverage again, right? So when things are stacked on top of one another, the structure is a lot more sound, and we don't have so much. We don't have to challenge the stabilizers nearly as much. So by squaring our shoulders, squaring our hips, we don't develop any kind of compensations. We certainly don't leave ourselves predisposed to injury. I think it leaves us with a stronger human flag in the long run. It might not enable you to be doing flags as long as you like, certainly not from the get-go, but I don't know about you, but if I say I can hold a 30-second flag, I want it to be the best looking flag you've ever seen.
There you go.
Right? And that's human flags fundamentals 101.
There you go.
You could pretty much apply all of those principles to later progressions. Listen, play around with modifications. If you get stuck on any given progression, sometimes just approaching it with a different drill, like kicking up from the top or coming down from the bottom, might be all you need to conquer the flag 1 degree at a time.
100%, and that's why playing around with it. Don't get stuck in one mode of, okay, if this is the only way to do it, that's the only way I'm gonna.
Listen, we don't deal in absolutes, and that's a big thing I'm about. Is I can tell you what works for me, what works for my clients, principles that have carryover from a bunch of other different disciplines. But at the end of the day, if you find something that suits you, as long as you can back it up with a clear-cut like reasoning, right?
Yeah,
it's the reasoning that makes sense, sound, and it isn't going to leave you predisposed to injury.
There you go.
Do it. Yeah.
There you go. Definitely.
Cool.
So thanks again for that wonderful detailed tutorial.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thanks
Appreciate
for listening.
it. Yes, sir.